good morning to everyone. And thanks a lot to TEDx for selecting Jaipur city as one of the locations and for giving this kind of opportunity. So I see a lot of luminaries who are present here who spoke about like number of topics, climate change and climate change impact and plastics and some good innovative initiatives and creative actions being taken at the field level. So my talk would be slightly different because I have worked in the government for last 27 years and mostly after this level of seniority, though we start from the lowest rung when we begin our service, so we start our service profile at the level of the sub-divisional magistrate at a very small level, then we rise to the collector and then we come to the secretariat, and we end up working as a policy maker, so at the topmost level in the government. So we do not go very deep. We work more broad about these real life challenges and issues and problems which we keep on listening about. And so policy framing is like something entirely different, because you people might have wondered many of times that like if there is a success story like in some remote village in Bihar or Andhra Pradesh, why we cannot implement here it in Rajasthan? Why does it fails? So why best practices fail? Because the simple reason is, because we work in policy formulation, the simple reason is that our socio-economic systems are extremely complex. They are extremely complex. So you do not have any kind of cut and dried solution which you can pick up from place 1 and implement it at place 2. So that is a beauty also, and that is what all public policy is about. So we will find maybe, for example, school nutrition scheme to be very successful in one state and not being so successful in another state. A police station like in X state being governed by the same IPC, same CRPC, same criminal justice system, and officers coming from the same services, the district superintendent of police or the district magistrate or the sub-divisional magistrate, and the same police station in state Y, which works under the same set of principles, they work entirely different. They work entirely different. There are reasons to it. There are reasons that because there are set of formal and informal institutions, even if they are governed by the same set of rules, sometimes the informal systems overpower our offices, the government offices or the private offices or the established institutions, which in a way create a kind of situation where they are not able to deliver efficiently. That is a policy failure. So the policy is all about that. So what I am going to speak is more related to, as a policy maker, what we see is a major challenge in the issues related to climate change. And when we talk about the intersections of like climate change and mental health, though a lot of subject matter experts are sitting here, I am a generalist, but giving you a slight public policy perspective, where is the problem? So what is the typical characteristic about climate change and mental health as such? So one, I would try to explain it by giving you 2 examples. First is there is Anthony Giddens paradox. So Anthony Giddens is a sociologist. He came out with the concept of Giddens paradox, which says that the human brain is wired to react on issues which are here and now. So what we see, what is present. So since ages, so since millions of years ago, and that is the basic survival instinct that we react on what is visible to us. And unfortunately, climate change is one of an issue where the most devastating impacts lie in distant future. They are hidden. So sitting like here in such kind of conferences or reading literature or lot of research papers are also getting churned out. So they seem to be abstract to us. So we only mostly talk about it. And I always say that talking about climate is like talk is cheap. We only talk and talk and talk. And when it actually comes to action, the priority action, there is a problem. So that is a major policy issue, why there is a problem. So one is Giddens paradox, that what we do not see, we are not very concerned about that. And second is tragedy of horizon. The ex-governor of Bank of London, Mark Carney, he said that the most unfortunate part while dealing with the climate change issues or climate change impact is that the, again, most devastating impacts lie in distant future. So we do not take action that is desired. So that is the policy perspective. So you keep on talking about it, but when it actually comes to action and taking strong decisions, a lot of conferences happen, IPCC and at the level of United Nations, a lot of big think tanks are there. But these two theories very well explain. And then what happens? So what happens because of these two theories, in a way, there comes a problem of attribution. So it becomes difficult for us to attribute. Emissions are there, certainly. But emissions are causing global warming. So it has to be attributed. And is global warming is a reason for extreme weather events or other climate related impacts, that whether it is causing climate change or not. It is a kind of attribution science. And then whether, if we talk about our today's topic, is climate change impact further impacting or exacerbating the mental health or psychosocial well-being related issues? So there is a problem of attribution because things are not visible, they are abstract, they are hidden. And this attribution problem then leads to denial. So what we normally hear, climate science denial, you will find a lot of researchers sitting in universities, and you will find a lot of think tanks who say that there is nothing like climate change. There is no climate change. And see, this particular year was so cold, and you say that particular week of that month or particular month of that particular year or the previous year was the hottest year in the history of the meteorology or climate science, but people keep on denying. So denial is a big problem, and denial leads to lack of attention. Denial leads to neglect on part of the policymakers, the financial institutions, and at times at the level of the professionals, the scientists and the health professionals too, sometimes. So unless this paradox is cracked, so we'll keep on talking. So, but the other side is that climate change and impact of climate change on mental health and psychosocial well-being is a reality. It is a reality. So 2016 Lancet report says that the mental health is the most neglected human health condition across the world. Mental health is the most neglected human health condition across the world. And then there is a 2017 Lancet report which very, very emphatically concludes that climate change impacts mental health. So I'm not going into the details about the implications and reasons, because some of doctors are also sitting here. I think they would be the right people to comment about it, but it very well says The statistics further goes on explaining that there are around 1 billion people in whole world who have got mental disorders, not psychosocial well-being. So then that number further increases. And if you go further, the situation is like that. Another research report says that the psychological effects of climate change or natural disasters to be more precise, as compared to physical injury, which disasters cause, is 40:1. Psychological impact of climate change related natural disasters is 40 times more than the actual physical injury which they cause. And what is the cost? The estimate of the cost. The estimate of cost is $1 trillion per annum. It is a huge amount, $1 trillion. So climate change is a reality. Like if you go on further subdividing it or subcategorizing it, there are acute impacts, then there are subacute impacts, and then there are chronic impacts. So acute impacts are like hurricanes and cyclones and wildfires. So they would have consequences on mental health related to like PTSD and depression and post-survival guilt. That is also there. When you talk about subacute impacts of climate change, so they lead to indirect consequences like conflicts in areas or migration, and which causes like displacement, agony, loss of livelihood, loss of work, and at times discrimination also. It depends from which country you are migrating to which country. There is racial discrimination also. That also causes a lot of mental health related issues. And then last, there are chronic impacts like sea level rise and rise in global temperatures. So that leads to overarching impact. Like there are few terms like eco-anxiety, eco-paralysis, and solastalgia, and isolation, and so there are a number of things. But the point is what to do about this then. If so, the solution, what I personally feel as a policy maker is, the solution only doesn't lie in climate science. It doesn't lie in medical science, unless, and that is why policies fail. As I explained in the very beginning, even good policies would fail at times because they are not well formulated. Our socio-economic structures are so complex. So the solution lies in, let us not only talk about science, let us mix art into it also. So a good policy is like Alfred Marshall, one of the very famous British economist, he said that a good economic policy is the policy which is formulated with cool heads and warm minds. So we need to have mix of both science and art, in the sense that it is not only about logic, science, justification, but it has also to be more about compassion, empathy. Unless we weave all these things together, we'll not be able to, as one was very rightly saying, that we all have role into it, and like it was mentioned that what we ourselves are doing, rather than expecting the whole society or the community to come forward and then take action on these particular issues. So science and art has to be mixed. The policy which we have to frame should be with cool heads and warm hearts. So I have got four suggestions, which if we actually want to deal with such kind of problem. So one is mainstreaming, which is more science part of a policy solution. That mainstreaming in the sense that the climate change related impact It has to be mainstreamed into medical science. It has to be mainstreamed into the policies or the guidelines which are related to mental health and psychosocial support and or well-being. It has to be mainstreamed. And there are three historical international commitments of the year 2015. I like this year 2015 like anything, and it is go a long way in our history, because 2015 Paris Agreement came, mitigation and adaptation of emissions. 2015 Sustainable Development Goals came, which talk a lot about climate change and health and education related issues. 2015 the Sendai Framework for Risk Reduction Management came. So all these three have to be integrated. There has to be a holistic approach, and these three international agreements very broadly, in fact Sendai Framework very specifically concludes that climate change has impact on mental health well-being. Not only of the people who are directly getting impacted, but there are indirect impacts, there are overarching impacts. So like it doesn't matter you are rich or poor or in which part of the world you live, north or south, you are developed or developing, you are emerging economy, or you are a super developed economy. It is not like that. So mainstreaming is must, one. Two, second is the whole idea of managing climate change related issues has shifted from respond and recovery to prepare and prevent. That is entirely existing in the mental health sector. And in fact, Sendai Framework talks a little bit about it. So the concept of managing mental health related issues and climate related issues, we have to shift our focus from the ideas of only responding and recovering once the emergency or the crisis has happened, to prepare for that, try to prevent that, and then whatever is left. So our effort should be to recover and respond. So this is the idea about the second thing that we have to change. So our action lies before, during and after the crisis. It is not that once a natural catastrophe has happened or any disaster event has happened, or if there are any indirect consequences. So mental health has got similar problems. So the mental health issues are hidden within the individual. Sometimes even the individual himself or herself doesn't know that he or she is suffering with a kind of mental illness or mental disorder, or he or she is needing any kind of psychosocial support. So it has to shift from, because risk management before, during and after, if we bring all these things together in terms of our priority action, then it gives more resilience, more capacity to an individual and to our institutions to adapt to those crisis events. And resilience is very important, because if certain events are going to happen, because we are moving fast towards the threshold of 1.5 degrees centigrade or 2 degrees centigrade, certain events are bound to happen, the extreme weather events or other impacts of climate change. These two are parts of the science aspect of the policy prescription. And on the art side, third is sustainable finance. So if I talk about India, only 20% of the people who actually require mental health support are able to receive that. So our institutions and infrastructures are not well equipped. Going ahead, only 2% part of our mental health expenditure, of our total health expenditure, is spent on mental health. Only 2% of total health expenditure goes for mental health. So financing becomes very important. We keep on talking big, we keep on organizing conferences, we keep on holding meetings, we keep on churning out reports. But fortunately, unfortunately, money is the thing which moves the ideas. and takes it back to implementation action. So that is there. So the concept of climate change, risk management, the actions before, during and after, they have to be built into our financial institutions, the financial system, how the banks lend, how people borrow from the banks, where medical institutions invest, where government is investing to create more and more infrastructure. And last point is capacity. So this is also hard part of it, capacity building, not only of the health professionals or health experts, but of the individuals themselves, of the communities, of the societies, because as what I mentioned in the very beginning, that ultimately it is the institution which comes to the rescue. That is why institutions are so important in governance in any country. Because like if there is a person who is not very powerful, who is not rich, and if he is getting harassed on some kind of issue or is facing some kind of challenges and he is requiring support, and at times it happens that he is not able to get that kind of support even from the government, unfortunately. So then ultimately the institutions would come to the rescue because they are designed like that. So the capacity of our institutions involved in mental health services, other hospitals, the institutions which are in a position to bring in more justice and equity, capacity needs to be built, capacity to be more resilient, capacity to adapt more, capacity to cushion out the shocks. That is very important. So these four things: mainstreaming, then second your risk management, then third is sustainable finance, and final is capacity, both individual and collaborative. And in the end, I have to only say that this problem, the climate change and the interconnections of climate change, say for example with mental health, it is right here and right now. Even though it may not be visible, but as the former president of the United States, Barack Obama, once mentioned in his speech, quoting one of the governors of the United States, that we are the first generation who are feeling the impact of climate change, while at the same time we are the last generation also who can do something about it. So all of us in this are together. Let all of us play our role. Thank you so much.